Welcome back to another episode of the Membership IQ. This is where you go to get smart about membership, such an important topic. And I'm excited to be joined today by another member of the XYZ University Advisory Board, Mr. Todd Letts, who is calling in today and actually leaving from here to go to Paris. Such a lucky guy. I am so jealous. Todd, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be on your podcast today. Just love your work, and it's a real pleasure to be on your advisory committee. I run my own company called Todd Letts Consulting, and I specialize in helping chambers of commerce. Chambers of commerce be the very best they can be. I also serve as the vice chair for the Americas on the World Chambers Federation. So those two activities keep me busy throughout the year.
So amazing. And you are based in Canada.
It's true.
And you have big news coming to Toronto. Why don't you share that news with our viewers?
Yeah, so I'm based here in Waterloo, which is about an hour west of Toronto. And for the last 6 months, we've been working with the Provincial Chamber of Commerce, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and they have successfully won the bid to host the 2027 World Chambers Congress. And this is big news for businesses and chambers of commerce. It's one of the biggest gatherings of global business people in the world. It will be well over 1,000 representatives from all parts, all regions, all continents, Australia, Asia, Europe, and of course, North and South America. And the themes are going to be sustainability, digital transformation, chambers, making them the best we can be, and of course, international trade is a big part of that as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 2027. I am hoping to be there because I think it would just be amazing. So, Todd, and oh, we forgot to mention, I have to mention this. So, I just saw Todd in Canada when I was up there speaking in November. And I just have to say, as a little side note, Todd is the best at hospitality. And you should be like a tour guide, like an official tour guide. I learned so much in my time with you about Canada and random trivia, and it was just amazing. It was amazing.
Likewise, it was wonderful to spend time with you and time in
Mhm.
the car and time at the conference. And let's not forget time at the pool table as well. And
Yes, that's right.
listeners and podcast viewers, I tell you, Sarah Sladek, she's a shark at the
Yeah,
pool.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Todd tells tall tales. All right, let's get down to the nitty gritty. So, you do a lot of work with chambers of commerce. You mentioned what's coming up in a couple years at this international conference, but let's expand upon that. What is the hot topic right now? What is the burning issue? What are the big questions and concerns that chambers have right now?
Well, I'm spending a lot of time talking to chambers across North America about leadership. Leadership at three different levels, really. Firstly, our national governments, our federal governments, both in the States and Canada, and the rumors and threats of tariffs happening in 2025 are top of mind for chambers of commerce and their members. Our international trade is just under $1 trillion a year, 909 billion. That's a 2.5 billion a day. There's about 9 million American jobs that are dependent upon Canadian companies. And I'm really kind of concerned, as are my clients, about Trump's tariffs, where he's threatening a 25% tariff on Canadian goods unless Canada beefs up its security. And we know we need to beef up our security, and we're doing that. But I don't know if you've ever seen a Canadian hockey player get cross-checked in a hockey game. Usually, not long after that, there will be jerseys over the heads and spit and chiclets, and the energy that we export energy to the States, and it can be a really unnecessary fight for, and can bring gas prices up in the States to over $5 is the prediction if these go through. Hopefully, we can avoid them. The energy costs, building cars, a car and parts go back and forth about 6 to 8 times across our borders. So the price of cars, the price of fuel, and I think there may have to be some layoffs as well. But let's hope that we can avoid these. And if there is a trade war, let's hope that it's short and we can get back. So leadership at our federal level with our politicians is number one
Yeah.
because of the economic impact. Leadership in the workplace, I think, is another key concern as well. Understanding what the expectations are of younger generations. We've got, individuals born in 5 different decades now, and upskilling is required, better understanding among generations as well. So that leadership at the company level, and then of course that brings to my clients leadership issues in terms of providing value, member value. What does that mean now in chambers of commerce, and how can they provide leadership to truly meet these emerging needs that companies and that chambers across the country and across our continent are having to deal with?
Yeah. These are really, really big issues that you're talking about. I mean, huge. And, I like to remind people that when great change or challenge arrives, it is an opportunity to innovate, but it's also an opportunity for chambers and other membership organizations to increase in value as long as they're playing their cards right and they're preparing and they're being responsive and they are helping their members navigate this change. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about change. What is your advice on how to lead in a time of change, whether you're an executive of an organization or just speaking on chambers in general? What should we be doing to lead in a time of change?
Well, I think there's really three things. Change can be very scary.
Mm,
And one thing that leaders can do is really focus on their messaging, really be clear. Like, clarity is important. What exactly is going to change? How is it going to affect me? Where exactly is it that we're going? If you can answer those three questions clearly, then you're on your way to productive change. The second thing I think is leaders have to be consistent with their messages. They have to show up and not just simply announce, here's the change, and then we don't see them for a while. That just doesn't fly anymore. We need to be there consistently to build trust, to hear concerns, to co-develop the changes that are happening so that you get buy-in, right? And I think the last thing is, coming out of COVID, what I think we've learned there is we've got to be much more compassionate in the workplace. Yes, we are buying the skills of individuals when we hire them, but that's not all we're buying. We're buying the whole person. We're buying their feelings, their dreams, their aspirations, and demonstrating that you care. Asking them questions about their family life, about their pets, asking them about their career development, and perhaps working with them and developing a leadership, a learning plan or a career development plan. I think those are the three things that we really need to focus on in order to make sure that the team is following us through these changes.
yeah. It seems like right now is so significant as far as change. I often think about because I used to work for a chamber of commerce, and way back, I just remember going to a chamber conference, and everyone was talking about even then, right? Demographic shifts. We were talking about new technology. This whole idea of, gosh, I'm going to sound old when I say this, but there was this whole idea of, oh my gosh, we're going to have new smartphones coming out. What is that going to be? And people kind of laughed about it. Oh, there's no way that's going to happen, but it did. And some of these things just keep repeating, and we have to get real comfortable with this idea of change and innovation. And I feel like we're still, all this time later, still trying to keep up with that pace of change.
Yeah, well, what is it about human nature, Sarah? I mean, off the top, you mentioned the importance of innovating. To innovate, you have to resist the temptation that a lot of chambers have. You have to resist the temptation to do what we did last year. You,
Yeah.
you have to
Right.
think about what you have to put mechanisms in place so that your customers, your members can tell you what their expectations are and how they've changed. You
Mhm.
have to have a mindset that is willing to change, and as I say, resist the temptation to do what we did last year. And I think practically what that means is we need to let some things go. We need to deliver things a little bit differently. Technologies, you mentioned, technology change has always been with us. Yes, but the speed at which the number of technological, the convergence of technologies that's happening in terms of cybersecurity and cloud-based storage and apps and now AI, of course, it's not optional. Our Gen Z customers are expecting up-to-date technology platforms, and they get frustrated if they're not able to get the answers they want in a couple of clicks. So yeah, it's really important to innovate. Yeah.
Oh, it is so. It's a skill set that as you mentioned, it's not optional anymore. It has to be leveraged and mastered. So let's talk about Gen Z and generations. Chambers are even though you have that decision maker, which is changing, I keep telling people this was a monumental year. 2024 was a monumental year in terms of demographics because for the first time in decades, baby boomers became the smallest population in the workforce. So there are now more Gen Zs than there are baby boomers, which, wow, right? The transition is on. So we are going to continue to see a lot of generational change. And I'm just curious, what are you seeing with chambers of commerce as new leaders are coming into the fold, new generations? Whole heck of a lot of change happening. Just how do you summarize what's happening in chambers right now?
Well, you're right. It is a tipping point. 2025 is a tipping point. And let's just, I think what's exciting, and I'm optimistic, is that now that Gen Z is entering the workforce and running businesses and are at a critical mass that is greater than the boomers, we can justify, I think, more change because we're not going backward. Let's compare the two cohorts. In terms of belonging, like you outlined in your latest book, Membership, so well, the immediacy of return on investment that Gen Z is looking for, and the immediate inclusion and feeling of belonging that they want to have is very different than the belonging pathway of the boomers. It used to be we'd join an organization, we'd observe, see who's who, how we can get involved, maybe we'd participate, and then we would feel that it was our organization. And you've so well articulated that the sense of belonging is a lot more urgent now. That when Gen Zs join an organization, they have no obligation to do so. They need to be invited, and how we invite them, needs to be done in a way that where they are, meeting them where they are. It's usually technology based. And they need to know that they can make a difference in an organization that's making a difference in the world right away. And then, if that experience is a good one, then they'll tell friends. Again, you've clearly articulated what the difference is, and I'm optimistic about it, but it's easier said than done. We're going to have to convince all of these boomer leaders that these new 20 somethings are going to come in, and we're going to give them the keys to a certain part of our car, or one of the cars in the
Mhm.
garage. And we don't understand as boomers is that they've got more information now on their phone, and it may not be on their resume, but it's on their phone, and the contributions that they can make is great. And so that's encouraging. And then if we look at it a little bit differently, I think um, the intergenerational collaborations that can occur are really exciting, because the Gen Zs want some mentoring in terms of career development, and the boomers need some mentoring in digital fluency. And so there's, again, if you go at it with the right mindset, I think that it's really an exciting time for us in 2025. And basic networking, for example, has changed so much. No longer will there be a preference to show up at a business after 5. Networking will have to be what do they call it? Asynchron. I sometimes
Asynchronous?
struggle with the word. Asyncratic.
Asynchronous.
Asynchronous,
Yes.
exactly. That's right. So that folks can get the knowledge they need, the networking that they want at a time that's convenient for them, not convenient for the chambers. So I'm optimistic about the future. I think we're at our own peril, ignore these preferences, but optimistically, if we can change our mindset, we can really build organizations that can make a difference in the world. So,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. Well, and I think chambers are really unique in and all membership organizations, quite frankly, but chambers are unique in that they're so incredibly localized, right? Or regionalized, and they're making that difference, and they tend to have that bird's eye view of all the change that's happening in their communities, including workforce needs, economic needs, education needs, so on and so forth. They tend to be very in the know as to what's happening in their community. But this concept of community is also changing a little bit. So, what are some of the strategies or best practices you're seeing in regards to community building?
Yeah, communities are not defined by geographic boundaries anymore. We can find communities online, and so as we demonstrate the value of our organizations, we need to find ways to collaborate um, with many different communities on many different platforms, and that co-development, that time that we take to ask, to be inquisitive, to be curious, is well invested time, I
Mhm.
think. And um, it helps people and helps the organization to build a shared purpose if we ask those questions. And it can be old school in terms of town halls, or it can be online town halls as well, and many different ways to ask questions and have a robust feedback loop. And I think that you make the point that we are sometimes a mile wide and an inch deep in terms of Chamber of Commerce and our fingers in many different industries, having the trust of business and the being able to give advice to government and having it impact the community. What I don't think chambers do well enough yet is storytell and help more of the general public and business owners understand how the work of the Chamber of Commerce in its advocacy and its economic development programs impacts your favorite store, or your neighbor's son or daughter getting a job. We need to do a much better job of storytelling, and that's probably means digital storytelling. And again, that's why I'm so happy that we're at the tipping point in 2025, and I see some examples now in Ontario, across North America, of Gen Z employees of chambers of commerce that are just kicking it, just doing a great job at telling stories through video, snippets, efficient time on all the platforms. And like I say, I'm really excited about 2025 and more of that polish on the storytelling and great stories to tell, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, telling the stories. Well, I am hoping you have a great story to tell, to leave, or a strategy to share, either way. But I mean, Todd, I'm just dying to ask you this question because you work with, you consult with, you volunteer with, you are in leadership roles with chambers globally. And that is, first of all, I just think that's super cool. I think you're really cool because of that. And I kind of envy that because you have, again, kind of that front row seat to being able to see what's happening in chambers everywhere. And I'm so curious to know, like, what's really working and whether it's a specific story about a specific chamber or just a general strategy. What do you see as kind of a tip that you want to leave with our audience as a great strategy to try or something that's really working right now?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at things at a global scale, you can see the differences, obviously, between countries. But you have to look a little deeper at what brings us together as humans and what motivates us to act in certain ways and behaviors that lift people up. And, no matter how different we are, I had both a personal and a professional challenge in 2024. My mom passed away, and I needed to change my professional responsibilities in terms of no longer being a CEO of a chamber and really doubling down on my business. And what I've learned is that if you show up as your authentic self, if you are not afraid to be vulnerable and let people know what's happening, as humans around the world, people will respond and respond in a positive way. I've had to really build my book of business, diversify my services, and by doing it in a way that I showed that I cared for my clients' success, no matter where they were in the world, they responded and were extremely generous with contracts and involving me in discussions and appointing me to various task forces, which meant in terms of results that I've had the best year that I've ever had in the 15 years of my business. So, even though we might seem we're different, if you show up with your authentic self, if you demonstrate that you care about their business, those are the principles I think that are universal and can serve all businesses well.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment. And it is so true. We started out this conversation, it was kind of gloom and doom, but hopefully our listeners are like, yay, there's hope, there's optimism, there's real opportunity, even in light of tremendous challenge, whether that is on a national or global scale or a very personal scale. So thank you, Todd, for sharing. Anything else you'd like to add before we conclude?
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's just been a joy to work with you. Thank you for your generosity and being involved with conversations with you and your colleagues. It's just been a real highlight of my year. We mentioned off the top the Toronto hosting 2027. Melbourne, Australia, this World Chambers Congress happens every 2 years. So 2025 is the year that it'll be in Melbourne, Australia, September 2nd through 4th. So I am going to recommend you to be a speaker at that
Ooh,
conference. And hopefully
that would
I'll
be
see you
amazing.
there.
Yes. I love Melbourne. I've been there once and they have so many, they're kind of renowned for their beautiful graffiti, their cityscapes and their unique graffiti. So if I'm not there with you, Todd, to show you around, you gotta check that out.
I
But
will. I will for sure.
but meanwhile, you're on your way to Paris, and so
Oui.
bon voyage.
Oui,
And thank
oui.
you so much. Thank you so much for being here on the Membership IQ. It's been an absolute joy interviewing you, and we'll see you next year.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Sarah.
Thank you, Todd.
Bye now.
Goodbye.